Now, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome residents and a few guests. 77 people signed up today, and I think everybody, plus a couple extra, showed up, so welcome. And I appreciate your patience. When we have that many people, the line kind of queues up a little bit, so be patient when that happens. Don Smith is no stranger to men's breakfast. You may recall he did a talk on the Inner Philadelphia volunteer work he did. And again, we welcome him today. Don and Jody moved in 2014. Don earned an MBA at Northwestern University. His hobbies are genealogy, travel, and reading. He's also been involved in CASA committees, the Resident Association Finance Committee, both a member and chair, and also a member and chair or president of the Executive Council. So without further introduction, welcome, Don.
Thank you very much. And Phil Shubin, you will tell me if I'm not speaking loud enough.
Okay.
All right? Well, you can hear me now.
What?
Oh, there's always one. And I'd like to acknowledge Richard Muller, who's videotaping this for the people that couldn't make it, and I know there's not going to be anyone in to see you to hear it a second time. My immigrant ancestor, and the reason I decided to put this together was all of the talk about immigration that we've been overwhelmed with the last couple of years. The controversial aspects for sure. So I thought it would be important and useful to talk about my immigrant ancestors' experience, but also put it in the context of what else I learned about this to help you think about how you should deal with this immigration controversy, because it's a real controversy and there aren't any easy answers. This is a tough issue. So this is the reason behind the talk, and I'm going to help guide you to think a little bit more broadly about immigration and give you some additional perspectives on it. I had an interest in genealogy for many years. Got started in it when one of my cousins said, "You know, Don, who was our early bishop ancestor?" I had no idea. And he said, "Well, here's what I found out." And it really became a detective story for me, so therefore I got involved in genealogy. The usual questions that we all ask: who are our ancestors? Where did they come from? Why did they leave Europe? Why did they come to Pennsylvania? So forth. What I knew was that they were Mennonites. We're going to talk about the Mennonites and who they are a little bit later. That they were Swiss, German extraction. I found out from DNA, by the way, that there's a little Neanderthal in my DNA. So be careful with that. They came to Pennsylvania, and they were Anabaptists. Now, I got to stop here a little bit to tell you about who the Anabaptists are. And the Mennonites are part of the Anabaptist umbrella. Remember, Martin Luther started the Reformation, or was the big mover in it in 1520. He was a Roman Catholic priest who got upset with what was happening in the church at that time. The sale of indulgences really tripped him off. So he decided we need to have reform. The first Anabaptists started 5 years after that, And these Anabaptists said, we don't think Martin Luther has taken this Reformation far enough. So they are an additional step beyond what Martin Luther said and proposed, and I'm going to tell you what that is. Anabaptist is an umbrella term that picks up the Amish and the Mennonites and the Hutterites and the Brethren and some other smaller sects. And this is the important part. What distinguishes Anabaptism from just Protestant Reformation? Well, their read of the Bible was that you were a believer before you could be baptized. This infant baptism business, they rebelled against. An infant has no idea what's happening, why he's being baptized. But a believer old enough does. So that was number one. The way they read the Bible, pacifism, nonviolence. You know, love your enemy, turn the other cheek. Separation of church and state. The way they read the Bible, render under Caesar that which is Caesar's, and under God that which is God. So there was a definite separation there. Church membership should be voluntary. You shouldn't be a member of a church just because your parents were there or born you into that church. You should make that decision yourself. The Mennonites, I will tell you about. Menno Simons was another Catholic priest in Germany, northern Germany. He picked up and subscribed to the Anabaptist beliefs. He was a great writer and preacher and helped consolidate the fledgling Anabaptist movement in northern Germany. So those congregations that subscribed to him and that he worked with became known as Mennonites. Now, both the Catholic and the Protestant authorities viewed Anabaptists, of course, as heretics and a threat to the social structure. That is where the problem comes in for all of these Anabaptists. And they lashed out. There was widespread persecution by both the Catholics and the Protestants of these Anabaptists. They really were afraid of this group of people. So, there was a big problem. One of my great-grandfathers, Martin Oberholzer, was a Anabaptist preacher in Zurich. And he was warned by the authorities, if you keep preaching, you're going to be in trouble. He kept preaching. They imprisoned him and drowned him. But he was one of many. There were Anabaptists in Austria that were burned at the stake. 49 Anabaptist women were burned at the stake in Salzburg. I mean, these people were scared and they had to eliminate the Anabaptists. Maybe the worst thing that they did, they hired Anabaptist hunters to say, if you round up these people and we convict them, you can keep all of their property. That is yours. Well, you know what happened there. It was a hugely successful movement. Okay, enter into the picture William Penn. William Penn was a leader of the Quaker movement in England in about the 1640s, something like that. And the Quakers felt that the Church of England was going off the rails. They believed in nonviolence, they believed in piety, in frugality, and so forth, and they saw all of this business at the church, and the church was very tied up with the crown in England. So they rebelled against this, but the Church of England, of course, pushed back against the Quakers. William Penn, fortunately for us, his father had lent the crown a lot of money. And the Crown said, okay, maybe what we'll do is we'll forgive William Penn's debt, or the debt to the Penn family. We'll forgive that and we'll give him a lot of land in the New World, in the colonies. And if he agrees to immigrate to there and take all these pesky Quakers with him, we'll do that. Well, Penn said he accepted that deal. So in around 1662, he accepted this big tract of land in the New World and emigrated eventually to what we now call Pennsylvania. But what do you do with a bunch of land? You can't, it doesn't do anything for you unless you can sell parcels of it and turn it into farmland, make it productive. So he needed to populate Pennsylvania. He took a boat to Philadelphia, a small town on the Delaware River. The Lenape were the indigenous tribe that were there, the predominant tribe. He cut a deal with them, paid them for some land around Philadelphia. And then he recruited Mennonites in northern Germany to move to Pennsylvania. Now, northern Germany looks a lot like Pennsylvania in some respects. So that was a selling point. But it was a very successful mission for Penn. So between 1683 and 1728, large numbers of Germans emigrated from Europe to America. It was very, very successful. Now I want to get back to my ancestor. 6 miles out of Philadelphia, Penn formed something that was called Germantown. And in 1683, he and his lieutenants went down to Krefeld in northern Germany. They spoke to some German Mennonites there and said, will you come, we'll sell you plots of land in Pennsylvania, and then you can farm it and we'll take it from there. Well, these folks were very smart. They were skilled linen weavers. They knew something about the Pennsylvania in terms of its agricultural possibilities, its land. So they took him up on that. And in 1683, leaving in June, or July rather, they took a ship, a small boat, with their families, some animals, farm equipment and so forth, and landed in the port of Philadelphia in October of that year. Now, there isn't much you can do in Pennsylvania in October, so they, and this group included one of my 8th great-grandfathers, Jan Lucan. They constructed some log huts in Germantown. They were each given a plat of land, and that plat was laid out ahead of time. And we have access to that plat map. We know what that plat map looks like, and the land for each of the 13 immigrants laid out on that plat. They built log huts. They braved the winter, and in the spring, they planted flax, corn, and other crops. Now again, they were skilled linen workers. They knew how to grow flax. They knew how to make linen fabric, or linen cloth, linen yarn, and then turn it into cloth and turn it into fabrics. They were smart people. Tariffs. We're going to talk about tariffs. Who knew that? Tariffs was how the English supported their activities in the colonies. Virtually all goods had to come in from the outside. So the English, in order to support their government and their court system and their militia, tariffed everything coming in to the colonies. It's a workable system. It works. They raised the money to support themselves. They also tariffed all the wood, wool, and all of the other cloth that was coming in. So these Crefeld people knew that, and they said, we can make cloth and not have to pay tariffs and do good business. And of course, that's exactly what happened. They were eminently successful. We read in stuff that's written about it, the settlement thrived. Any doubt about that? Here's a picture of, let me get this up, an etching of Germantown. Oh my gosh, let me get my, well, you can see this. Here are the houses. They're changed from the log huts. This was taken about, this picture is an etching from something 3 years later. They've gone into 2-story houses. You can see up here the land fields that they've cleared, the fencing that they've established. This is the Wissahickon Creek for you Philadelphia people. That's the Wissahickon Creek. That's where they got their water, and that's where they used to power their equipment to process the flax material. Here's a horse and a buggy, and they took their linen and farm crops that they grew into 6 miles into Philadelphia, and then on the return trip, they bring back materials that they needed to maintain their farm business. But we have to take a pause here. Who else was in America at that time? All right, here's a map of the settlements on the East Coast. The yellow, and this is very, very general, so don't take this for gospel. It's very, very general. But the yellow is where the English settlements were. From up here in Plymouth and Massachusetts Bay Company, down here to Pennsylvania, Maryland, and into the Carolinas. The green are the French, who are up in Canada and into the Great Lakes. The purple, or the color here, are the Swedes and the Netherlanders, who were in the New Amsterdam, the New York area. But look at this. That, Florida, settled or by the Spanish in 1513, 100 years or more before any of this. So they were, and what I haven't shown you here is on the West Coast, Juan Cabrillo had set foot in San Diego Bay in 1544, over 100 years before these colonies were here. And on top of that, he had gone up the coast and established missions up and down the coast. Also, into what is now Arizona, the Spanish conquistadors and the Mexicans were moving in to find gold and other riches, if they could, into Arizona and into New Mexico. My point of telling you this is that there were Europeans in what is now America and North America. So this is not something, the Pennsylvania and William Penn is not something new. What about the indigenous tribes? They were all over North America, of course. And these are terrible estimates, but the best I could find out. People thought maybe there were 10 to 15 million indigenous tribes all through North America before the Europeans came. After the Europeans came, and as many of you know, they couldn't handle the diseases from the Europeans, and it's estimated that their numbers were down maybe to 3 to 5 million. Huge drop for them. Now, the last thing I want to say about this is a bit misleading because you think, oh, this is all settled land. It wasn't settled. This was open, very few people around. So don't think that there's crowding here. When Penn Maven came into Pennsylvania, most of the land was open. Some of the Native Americans would come through there, but only a few. So, as you might suspect, there was an immigrant problem. By 1728, thousands had left Europe for Pennsylvania. Dozens of ships were engaged in doing this. It was a lucrative business for the ship people. What they would do is, in June of the year, something like that, when the wild Atlantic had calmed down, they would get people from Europe, take them across, and they would land maybe 3 months later. It was a perilous voyage for many, a perilous voyage for many. Many died, many got sick, but many made it too. But I don't want you to believe that it was an easy trip for these. Most of the people that they were taking from Europe to Pennsylvania were Germans, but there were also Dutch and Swiss and French and Scandinavians as well. And here's something interesting for you. Most were naturalized. The English had a very simple system set up. Anytime a ship came in with immigrants, they had to report into the harbor master, and the ship's captain had to give them a list of all of the passengers on the ship. It was normally the head of the household, his wife, and then how many children there were. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. Most of them, now the naturalization process, so they had a count on the ship, and we genealogists have access to a lot of these lists. Some of them are lost, but we have access to a lot of them. The other thing, in the naturalization process, they had to swear, each head of the household had to swear when he got off the ship, or either sign a document or swear an oath that he would respect the king and respect the king's reign in America. So the system worked, and this continued on into the 1700s and even after the Revolution and the United States was formed. So we had the system to do this. I wanted to point that out to you. Was there a criminal element here? In Pennsylvania, I have to say no, and I'll tell you why later. But down in Jamestown, you will remember that the Queen needed to get people to populate Jamestown, so she allowed prisoners who were in prisons in England. If you populate Jamestown, we'll set you free. So there were some of those, but no signs of criminality down there. And I'm going to talk about the criminal thing a little bit later. Now, one of the most important points of this presentation right now, I want to talk to you, or mention to you, what one of our founding fathers said in 1750 when he was opining on immigration in Pennsylvania. This founding father expressed serious concerns regarding the large influx of German-speaking immigrants into Pennsylvania. His views, articulated in both public writing and private correspondence, reveal a mixture of alarm, cultural anxiety, and pragmatic suggestions for managing immigration. He worried that the sheer number of German immigrants would overwhelm the English character of Pennsylvania. In his 1751 essay, Observations Concerning the Increase of Mankind, he asked, why should Pennsylvania, founded by the English, become a colony of aliens who will shortly be so numerous as to Germanize us instead of us anglifying them? He feared that the Germans would never adopt our language or customs any more than they can acquire our complexions. That's interesting. He noted that the Germans were forming tight-knit communities, maintaining their language, and even conducting legal and business affairs in German. He predicted that in a few years, they will so outnumber us that all the advantages we have will not preserve our language, and even our government will become precarious. He described the new arrivals as ignorant, stupid, not being used to liberty. They will know not how to make a modest use of it. He was particularly critical of their supposed unwillingness to participate in the colony's defense, which he interpreted as a lack of loyalty and civic responsibility. His writings also included comments on complexion, suggesting that the Germans, except the Anglo-Saxons, were swarthy, implying a preference for maintaining the colony's English and implicitly white Anglo-Saxon Protestant identity. Despite his harsh criticisms, he did not advocate for a total ban on German immigration. He said he did not advocate for a total ban on it. He acknowledged their virtues, particularly their industry and frugality, calling them excellent husbandmen who contributed to the improvement of the country. Instead, he recommended measures such as distributing German immigrants more evenly across the colonies, mixing them with English settlers, and establishing English language schools in heavily German areas to encourage assimilation. His stance on German-speaking immigrants in the 1750s thus reflected deep ambivalence, a mixture of nativist fears, ethnic prejudice, and grudging respect for immigrant contributions, alongside practical proposals for integration rather than exclusion. Do we know who that founding father was? Benjamin Franklin, writing in 1750. And I think that reading sets the framework for immigration problems all over the world. Isn't that pushback what we hear anytime there's an immigration problem? Just think of it. Okay, fast forward 3 centuries. My grandparents, Walter and Priscilla Berge Bishop, had 5 children. Those 5 children had 18 children, of which I am one. What's happened to those Bishop cousins over the years? There's been a general westward migration, makes sense, moved out of Pennsylvania and gone west. I think there's still about 7 of us that live back and is remaining in Pennsylvania. They've all had higher levels of education. 14 of them have master's degrees. We have 3 PhDs. Obviously, as they've moved west and away and married into other families, there's been a change of religious affiliation. So many of us now are Presbyterians and Methodists and Church of Christ. And so we even had a Hare Krishna at one time. And of course, new ethnicities have been introduced via marriage into the line. So what do we conclude from all of this? Jan Lukin wanted to escape social conflict and persecution. Nothing surprising about that. Wanted to seek freedom of worship and economic opportunity. Wanted to persevere in the new world. And of course, there's always some negative nuance to all of this. The indigenous peoples and the African Americans not so much. Now, isn't this the story of immigration all over the place? And that's one of the points that I want to leave with you this morning. What's the elephant in the room? Which we have to address. The elephant in the room is there are conflicting views on managing immigration. And I've vastly oversimplified this to two views. View number one, the system is broken. We can't accept everyone. We should expel the undocumented and then allow re-entry legally. View number two is we should accept all those escaping persecution and broken economies. We should allow the undocumented who have been here in the U.S. to remain. That's my simplistic analysis of where we are today. So what's the answer? What do you think? You have to make up your own mind. My program this morning is to show you what happened to my immigrant ancestor, and from that space, have you take it a step further. Finally, I have to make this, just let me get this a minute here. I'm not getting it. The other thing that strikes me, we have immigrants here who are our fellow residents now, and they enrich our experience. We have them from China, Taiwan, Korea, Japan, the Philippines, Hungary, Iran, Sweden, Germany, England. Who else have I missed? Italy. Well, I'm talking about immigrants. Immigrants among us. Immigrants among us. Italy, okay. Yeah.
Canada.
And Canada, thank you. Thank you, Don.
India.
And India. Right. Croatia, Yugoslavia, right? China, yes.
Mexico.
Now, is that something? Is that something? Right here in Casa, we have immigrants, just like Gianluca, and you have made our life richer for it. I am sure, or pretty sure, that each of you immigrants experienced some pushback. That's just the nature of the beast. So, that's the point of this presentation, and I wanted to tell you how much we appreciate the immigrants that we have here and how much you add to our experience in Casa. So, that's my presentation. If there are any comments or questions, we have a chance to entertain them.
Bravo.
Any questions or not?
Or comments?
Okay, hold on a second.
I don't think I should say this, but tell it to Trump.
Sure. You know, my answer to that is that's the difference between view number one and view number two, or something in between. This is the decision that we all have to participate in somehow. Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
Don,
Yes.
your cousins, the Bishop cousins that came west, where are they scattered around now?
Well, California, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Nebraska. So that's where they are. We had one in Hawaii, but he's passed away. By the way, 15 of us out of the 18 remain on this side of the grass. Yeah, Irene.
I just want to comment on the idea that you said we appreciate you immigrants. And from what you were saying, we're basically all immigrants here. And the immigrants that have been here the longest, I think, are the ones that are causing a lot of difficulty for the immigrants that want to come. So there's a you and a we that we need to consult.
Okay. Thank you, Irene. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I am impressed by the advance of their religious belief ahead of time. You know, like believing in that early days, church and the separation of church and state. And I know that really ahead of the time. And I just wonder how many of your families still stay in the original faith.
Yeah, I think I said there were, and I think there are at least 5 or 6 that are still Mennonites back in that, still Mennonites, yes. Yeah.
Don,
Yeah.
can see where the name Bishop came from. Where did Smith come from? Was that German or English or?
That was German, it was Schmidt.
It was Schmidt?
And
So are you related to any of the Schmidts around here?
No, not that I'm aware of, unfortunately. The Schmidt family, they were also Mennonites, and they came in through, in the 1800s, into New Orleans, and then up the Illinois River, and settled in around the Peoria area, and where there were other Mennonites living. But they were Mennonites, and some of them were something called Amish Mennonites. So, yeah. Yeah.
I was born on an Indian reservation in South Dakota, so I'm a boy named Sue.
You know, the Indians, we could have a whole program on what happened with our Native Americans. The Lenapes, who were the dominant tribe in Philadelphia, their headquarters are now in Oklahoma. They were given that land by the U.S. government, and they conduct and maintain their culture from that place in, I forget where it is in Oklahoma. So they're still there. Yeah. Yeah.
Don, what's the difference between the Mennonites and the, what's the other? The Amish.
That's a good question, Ben. The Amish are generally more conservative in their lifestyle. This is a gross common statement, but they're generally more conservative in their lifestyle and in their the way they conduct their church services. They do it more with less freedom, say, than a lot of the Mennonites. Now, to make things complicated, there's a group called Old Order Mennonites, and they are more conservative. They used to drive cars, but they painted them, the fenders black, that kind of stuff. So, like any sect, whether you're going, they generally, move apart, form different groups, and the Mennonites are no different than that. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Don. Before you leave, I want to put a request in to be a speaker here. Talk about your career, talk about your hobbies. We're okay through the end of the year, but we're looking for speakers in January and February. So please contact me. We can help you with the technical things, putting together PowerPoint or Keynote. And so please don't hesitate, come in and talk to me. We'll get you started, and we look forward to hearing your story. Thank you, Don. Next week, our next meeting will be September 27th. Mike Mowry. And Mike has lived here a short period of time at CASA, but he's got an interesting story from college to CASA, including his hobby of motorcycle touring. So we look forward to Mike next month. Thank you for attending.